In 1964, a U.S. research vessel photographed something on the ocean floor that nobody on board could explain. It sat nearly 4,000 meters deep, off the southern tip of South America, perfectly symmetrical, eerily geometric, looking for all the world like an alien antenna rising from the abyss. The crew logged it. Scientists argued about it for years, and the real answer, when it finally came, was somehow more interesting than the conspiracy theories. That's what this video is actually about, not cover-ups, not suppressed teams. The real story, because science has now confirmed that multiple lost continents are genuinely hiding under the ocean, found through sonar, rock dredging, and magnetic surveys, and most people have never heard a single one of them. And the last one on this list is the strangest of all, because it started as a debunked myth and then turned out to be accidentally, partially, real. There are 4 lost continents worth knowing here, plus that antenna story and one more ocean mystery that broke the internet in 1997. We'll get to all of it. But let's start with the one that hid in plain sight for longer than any of the others, Zealandia, also called Te Reo a Maui in Maori. It is the largest submerged continental fragment on Earth, at about 4.9 million square kilometers. That's roughly the size of India. Covering more than 5 million square kilometers, it's 2/3 the size of Australia, but 95% of its area is submerged beneath the Southwest Pacific Ocean. New Zealand's mountains, only remnants of a large mountain chain, the 2 islands of New Zealand and some isolated peaks, now small oceanic islands, are visible on the surface. That's it. That's all you can see of an entire continent. As Zealandia tore away from Gondwana, its crust was stretched and thinned like pulled dough, dropping from a normal continental thickness to as little as half of it. Thinner crust rides lower, so most of Zealandia settled below sea level while still being, chemically and geologically, continental crust. It's a continent that simply sat down in the ocean and never got back up. Zealandia was assigned continental status in 2017. Since then, researchers have been working to map the lost continent, no easy feat as 94% of it is underwater. And then, in 2023, something remarkable happened. Researchers published the first complete geological map of Zealandia, making it remarkably the first continent on Earth to be mapped in full. Think about that for a second. We have had satellites orbiting Earth for decades. We have mapped the surface of Mars. And we only just finished mapping an entire continent on our own planet in 2023. A 2021 study also found that Zealandia is over 1 billion years old, about twice as old as geologists previously thought. So that's one. A continent the size of India, mostly underwater, only confirmed to exist 9 years ago. But here's the thing. Zealandia is actually the easy one to understand. The next one is buried somewhere completely different, and if you've ever taken a vacation in southern Europe, you've already walked on it. Geologists call it Greater Adria, a landmass roughly the size of Greenland that broke off the supercontinent Gondwana, drifted north for tens of millions of years, then collided with Europe and was driven down into the mantle. Greater Adria separated from North Africa about 240 million years ago during the Triassic period. Then it started moving north, and about 140 million years ago, it hit Europe. Greater Adria got bulldozed and buried in the process, and mostly sank beneath what is now Italy, Greece, and the Balkans. Portions of Greater Adria now lie as much as 1,500 kilometers below our planet's surface. But here's the part that makes this feel almost poetic. Some of that scraped-off rock is familiar. Limestone from Greater Adria, cooked under heat and pressure, became the marble that the Greeks and Romans quarried for their temples. The continent did not vanish without trace. It became scenery, and then it became building stone. The Parthenon, the Colosseum, Roman sculptures, all of it carved from the skin of a drowned continent. Plato was literally standing on the remains of a real Atlantis. He just had no idea. Now, keep that thought about Atlantis in the back of your mind, because we're going to come back to it, and the twist is genuinely one of the strangest things in this whole video. First, though, the continent that actually went missing, the one that geologists knew had to exist, could see the hole it left behind, but couldn't find for decades. For decades, researchers have been puzzled by the disappearance of a huge 3,000-mile-long landmass known as Argoland that once bordered northwestern Australia some 155 million years ago during the Jurassic era. Geologists have long known that around 155 million years ago, a 5,000-kilometer-long piece of continent broke off Western Australia and drifted away. They can see that by the void it left behind, a basin hidden deep below the ocean known as the Argo Abyssal Plain. The seafloor showed exactly where it went. It drifted northwest. It should be sitting under Southeast Asia right now. But when scientists looked, there was no large continent hidden beneath those islands, only the remnants of small continental fragments surrounded by much older oceanic basins. So, where did an entire continent go? Argoland splintered into many different shards. That obstructed the view of the continent's journey, but the fragments had reached their present positions at approximately the same time, shedding light on their prior connections. These broken pieces came together like a mosaic, with Argoland concealed beneath the lush jungles spanning significant areas of Indonesia and Myanmar. There was never a single clearly delineated and coherent continent of Argoland, but rather an archipelago of microcontinental fragments separated by older oceanic basins. The geologists who cracked it said they spent 7 years putting the puzzle together, 7 years to find a continent the size of the continental United States, hiding in plain sight under one of the most populated regions on Earth. And here's why that matters beyond just being a cool fact. After the discoveries of Argoland, Greater Adria, Zealandia, and other ancient continents, it is most likely that others remain hidden. These studies have given us leads for a more thorough search. We now have better indicators: zircon crystals, magnetic and gravitational anomalies. The map of Earth is genuinely not finished. Scientists are openly saying there are probably more out there, and now they have the tools to find them. Before we get to the strangest one, and the Atlantis twist I promised, this is a good moment to pause. If you're watching this and you haven't subscribed yet, I'm doing a $100 Amazon gift card giveaway to celebrate when this channel hits 1,000 subscribers. I'll randomly pick a winner once we hit that milestone. All you have to do is subscribe, drop a comment below, even just tell me which lost continent blew your mind the most, and you'll be in the running. I'll announce the winner right here on the channel. Okay, back to the ocean floor. Now, that antenna I mentioned at the start. In 1964, the U.S. oceanographic vessel Eltanin photographed something on the seafloor about 3,900 meters deep off Cape Horn. It was eerily symmetrical. It looked structured. It looked intentional. UFO writers called it an alien transmission array. It circulated for years as one of the great unsolved ocean mysteries. The real answer: a carnivorous deep-sea sponge called chondrocladia, which grows in a radially symmetrical pattern that genuinely looks engineered when photographed in isolation. A real research team, a real baffling image, a completely natural explanation that took years to confirm. And then there's the bloop. In 1997, NOAA hydrophones picked up an ultra-low frequency sound so powerful it was detected across thousands of kilometers of open ocean. It didn't match any known animal. It didn't match any geological process anyone recognized. Lovecraft fans pointed out that his fictional sunken city of R'lyeh was located in roughly the same part of the Pacific. The internet ran with it. NOAA later traced the bloop to an icequake, a massive Antarctic iceberg fracturing under its own pressure. The sound of ice, not a city, but the fact that it took years to figure out, and that NOAA's own hydrophone network recorded something that genuinely stumped researchers for a while. That's the real version of the Sonar team found something they couldn't explain story. It happened. It just had a natural answer. Which brings us to the Atlantis twist. And this is the one I told you to remember. In the 1860s, a zoologist named Philip Sclater had a problem. Lemurs lived in Madagascar and India, but not in mainland Africa, which made no sense geographically. Before anyone understood plate tectonics, the only explanation he could come up with was a sunken land bridge connecting those two places. He called it Lemuria. Scientists eventually moved on. The theory was debunked. The mystical crowd picked it up, renamed it Mu, relocated it to the Pacific, and that's basically where the entire modern lost continent genre, Atlantis included, comes from. A Victorian biology paper about lemurs. Here's the twist. Sclater was wrong about the lemurs, but he was accidentally pointing at something real, because sitting under the island of Mauritius, a holiday destination in the Indian Ocean, geologists found zircon crystals in the volcanic sand dated between 660 million and about 2 billion years old. The island itself is only about 9 million years old. Those crystals came from somewhere much, much older sitting underneath it. A Precambrian microcontinent, roughly a quarter the size of Madagascar, once part of the ancient supercontinent Rodinia. Geologists call it Mauritia. It's real. It's sitting under a beach resort, and it exists in roughly the same part of the world that Sclater was pointing at when he invented his fictional sunken land. A debunked lost continent that turned out to be sitting on top of a genuine one. The reason all of this feels hidden, and this is the real closer, isn't a cover-up. According to NOAA, less than 10% of the seafloor has been mapped by modern sonar methods, which use sound to reveal undersea topography. The Seabed 2030 collaboration aims to make a publicly available, comprehensive map of the entire ocean floor by 2030. We are, right now, in the middle of the most ambitious seafloor mapping project in human history. And every time we look, we find something. Zealandia, Greater Adria, Argoland, Mauritia. The deep Pacific is still mostly unexplored. Earth, it turns out, still holds continent-sized secrets. Lost continents weren't suppressed. They were under a kilometer of water that nobody had scanned yet, and the ones we've found in just the last few years suggest we are nowhere near done. If you want to keep going down this rabbit hole, the video on ancient ocean mysteries is right there. It picks up exactly where this one leaves off. Subscribe if you haven't, drop your comment for the giveaway, and I'll see you in the next one.